Greetings to the brightest audience in the country. This is Real Science Radio, and I'm Fred Williams.
And I'm Doug McBurney, science geek, amateur comedian, and co-host of Real Science Radio. It's great to be with you again, Fred, talking about real science on Friday.
Well, Doug, it's great to have you in the new Real Science Radio
the
studio.
palatial new studio digs. Wow.
Yeah.
With the signage and the mixing board and the real radio microphones and real radio headphones.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
So we're going to go.
This is great.
Yeah. We're going to go through some science articles that you've been putting together over the last month or two.
Yeah.
But before we do that, though, Doug, we got to do our interesting fact of the week.
Okay, interesting fact of the week. Now,
Are you ready?
Are you sure it's interesting? Have you polled this? Have you done some focus group on this?
I did a focus group,
Okay.
and I said, is this an interesting fact?
All right. I guess I'll trust the judgment of your focus group, or I guess we'll test the judgment of your focus group.
Yeah. Okay, so here we go. So, Doug,
Yes.
how many hearts does an octopus have?
Hearts?
Yes.
Hearts. So would this be an octopus that was stamped on a letter by a teenage girl, and then there were hearts stamped around it too? Or are you talking about an actual octopus?
An actual octopus and an actual beating heart.
Okay, I'm gonna guess.
Blood.
I'm gonna guess an octopus has one heart. No.
It's actually, think of the Trinity.
Okay. So the an octopus has three hearts.
3 hearts.
3 hearts. That's so good for my. Thank you. That's good for my self-esteem.
Yeah. So it's,
appreciate it.
a lot of people,
3
I think,
hearts.
if you tell them there's more than one, I think I would have probably guessed 8 had I not known what this interesting fact was.
I almost said 8, but I thought that was too obvious.
Yeah, too many hearts. So
And then I thought, well, of course I'm going to naturally assume it's more than one. So I went for maybe it was 1.
maybe, yeah.
So
Okay.
3 hearts in an octopus.
3 hearts. So 1 heart circulates blood around the body, kind of like ours does.
Okay.
But God designed 2 extra hearts to pump blood past the gills. You got to get it out to all the gills. So,
Sure.
and to pick up oxygen.
Oh,
So,
right.
3 hearts. That's pretty cool for an octopus.
Well, very good.
I
And
wonder
so,
if like 1 part got stabbed, the other 2 would keep the octopus alive. If there's a redundancy there.
you have a
But-
saltwater tank. We could test that.
Yeah. Well, you can have an octopus in a saltwater tank. One of the guys that I'm friends with that owns a saltwater store, fish store, he had an octopus in one of his aquariums. And what it would do, it would leave at night. It would actually crawl out of the tank at night, go into other tanks, eat, have a nice little dinner snack, and then make its way back into its original aquarium.
Wow.
And he ended up seeing this on video. And so, yeah, octopus they're really smart. It's
Now,
amazing.
was he eating other fish that were for sale?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Oh.
This was a costly thing to him.
So that's
for
why
sure.
he had to set up the cameras to figure out what's going on. All my stock is disappearing.
Yeah. And he's a graduate of Rice University, and we're going to have someone pretty famous from Rice
Yes.
on our program here in an upcoming week or two, which I'm really looking forward to that.
Yes,
So,
Dr. James Tour will be on. He'll be discussing some of the happenings around origin of life research. There's a lot of happenings, and Dr. Tour is at the forefront of the happenings in origin of life research, even though he holds to the position that we are absolutely clueless about the origins of life, especially those who have published all those papers. Anyway, it should be really interesting.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've had a chance to watch some of Dr. Tour's YouTube. He's got a Bible study going right now on Isaiah. So I'm going to be checking that out.
Yeah.
Check in with him next week, see what's going on with Isaiah chapter 2. Did a little bit of Isaiah chapter 1 the previous week. So we'll be looking forward to having Dr. Tour on. We're also going to be doing an update on artificial intelligence. We're going to do another show.
Yeah, we had a part 1 with Daniel Hedrick, and we want to finish that up with a part 2. We had more material we wanted to get to, so we're going to make sure that we get to that in an upcoming show.
Yes. And it's January.
That's
so it's telethon month. We are doing a telethon. Our goal is $25,000, and we don't need it to stay on the air because you've been very helpful, and we're going to stay on the air. That's not the issue. We want to get it out to more people. We're going to be hiring a media team to help. I don't know if we want to game the algorithms. What do you even call it anymore? We just want more people to be able to see the show. And to do that, there are strategies that it's a full-time job to figure out how to break through people's personal little bubble and get them to see something that maybe they weren't looking for, like hopefully the gospel, which we try to give here on a regular basis. So.
Yeah, that's right. And so we air on AM 670 KLTT in Denver every Friday,
right?
And on all of the various podcasts that you can get, connect to, like Spotify, Apple Music. We have tons of listeners there, and we really love that audience. But we have another audience we want to reach, and that's the YouTube videos and shorts, and these shorts that can go out on like Instagram and other places. That's where especially a lot of the young people are getting their news, actually, their facts about the world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a huge, huge, huge opportunity. There's so many people that watch these videos, even on, on what's it called, Twitch and these other things I'm not a big fan of, but hey, if we can get shorts and video clips on things like Twitch and Instagram or whatever else the kids are watching, the young adults, on up to who knows how old. I mean, you and I were kind of probably the Facebook crowd. I don't know, but you're probably not even that.
I guess.
Well, Facebook is the venue or the medium where old people kind of spy on their kids, or and they can, they share jokes or whoever knows what. Facebook really lost the young crowd, but the young crowd is again on things like Instagram,
TikTok.
TikTok. That's what I couldn't think of.
That's the thing now.
Yeah.
You got to get on TikTok. Your video's got to be 3.5 seconds long. You got to make the point. But we do any chance we have to get in front of a generation who's been told they can find joy and satisfaction in life simply by satisfying their own appetites and lusts. They eventually realize that that's just not true. And they need to hear the gospel. And that's why we need to raise $25,000 in January. Go click through, subscribe to some of our monthly resources, or just sponsor a show. It's, I think, $150 to sponsor a show. What a bargain.
Whatever you want to.
Sponsor a show or two, sponsor a month.
Yeah.
Help us out. $25,000 for January, and we'll shut up about it after that.
Well, I'm going to say one last thing. So the Man on the Street interviews that Ryan and I did, we're almost up. We're actually past 4,000 views.
Hey, all right.
4,000 people that haven't. I'm going to I'll estimate maybe 3,500 who have never heard of Real Science Radio. So that's the point. We're tapping into people who have never heard of us, and they're going to hear about soft tissue. They're going to hear about these different things that support the biblical account of the history of the world.
Amen.
And most importantly, Jesus Christ, who is the creator of all things, and we need to get that out there.
That's it. And creation is just one of the tools we use because it gets people's attention. Because as you'll see when we have Dr. Tour on, the other side doesn't really have any evidence, and they have less and less every day. And so we've got some news articles from the world of science, so-called, I guess we would call it.
Yep. And again, you've been compiling this list. I think it's great.
Well, I grab science stories here and there, and I save them. And I have, the first one is from phys.org. Now, that's not F-I-Z-Z, phys.org, phys.org. Oh, great. So phys.org, which is, this is a serious organization, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they pass themselves off as a serious organization. And there are countless articles that appear on the phys.org website that are legitimate, real, genuine science, real breakthroughs, real stuff.
Yeah, they rank pretty high in Google. These things pop up all the time. And so this particular article is titled, "Evolution is not as random as previously thought."
Now there you need a rim shot on that. Yeah. That should be a rim shot. It's not as random. What are you talking about? It's not as random. The whole idea that we've all been taught since we were in second grade is that it's random.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden it's maybe not as random.
Yeah, in college textbooks on evolution, it says a major tenet of evolution is random mutations.
Random
Mistakes.
mutations,
That's
unguided,
a major tenet. Yeah.
unguided, naturalistic, all of that. Well, a new study has found that evolution is not as unpredictable as previously thought, which could allow scientists to explore which genes could be useful to tackle real-world issues. So it's almost as if the evolutionary biology community is getting ready to step outside of its own dogma because they realize if we really want to understand this stuff, we're going to have to treat it as if it were designed. But we're just going to have to do that. Now, they're not going to admit that it was designed. They're certainly not going to admit that it was designed by an almighty creator who is the Lord of the universe. But they're going to have to start looking at it as if it makes sense.
Exactly. And remember Sal Cordova, he brought up the great point where all these companies are hiring MIT engineers, software programmers,
right?
Because they realize the genome is really just elaborate software. So you're hiring people who know about software design. It's really interesting. Basically, the article says, in effect, the researchers discovered an invisible ecosystem. And in parentheses, perhaps the design of the program.
Perhaps the design of the program.
Where genes can cooperate or can be in conflict with one another.
Yeah.
So it's, again, you always see creation and design in these evolution articles, and then they poo-poo it, and then they have to worship their God of evolution and make sure they're trying to push the evolutionary agenda. But the big elephant in the room is design. It's just screaming out.
Yes.
And, Doug, I want to do a show eventually on all the elephants in the room that we've talked about through the last many years on Real Science Radio. We'll have a list show of elephants in the room.
Right.
And one of the biggest one is that intelligent design elephant that's always, bouncing around, stomping and breaking all the shelves of the evolutionists. And they're flabbergasted and shocked and amazed.
Yep. And so because researchers are willing to admit, at least under their breath, that this looks like a program, this looks like a dynamo. In fact, we can take advantage of the fact that this appears to be a program. So they're going to be able to make some advances toward, for example, antibiotic resistance in bacteria, things like that. If they were just to strictly stick to the evolutionary biology model, they would restrict and hamper and retard their ability to make actual advancements.
Yeah.
And this article is something of an admission that they were wrong all along. That's not to put too fine a point on it, but I'm not one to say I told you so, but for crying out loud, if you're looking at this stuff and it looks like a computer code and it smells like a computer code and it quacks like a computer code, maybe it's a code, maybe there is design. And so we're thankful that they're willing to look at it that way.
And sadly, evolution and evolution science has kept science back for so long. It really impedes the progress of science. Things like removing tonsils because you thought it was a leftover vestigial organ, and then we find out it has a use. I mean, there's so many examples. Bob and I talked about immunology, and I'm probably saying that word wrong.
Yeah, immunology, yes.
Yeah, where you use the body's own design to help fight cancer, and just think of the years that wasn't looked at, because it is something that's clearly designed.
Right.
So, we're making progress.
Well, in fact, now that you bring up a useless organ, I've got an article I picked up off Science Alert, and it's about a useless organ that turns out it's not so useless. It turns out lots of people have their thymus removed.
That's right.
And now a large study has shown that there's a significant increase in the risk of death from all-cause cancer, from all causes later in life, all causes, if you have your thymus removed. So it turns out the thymus has some capability that helps prevent cancer that we were completely unaware of. And now we can tell because people who've had their thymus removed, the data tells us. So the study is purely observational. Let's see, this is from sciencealert.com. thymus.com. It's purely observational, which means it cannot show that removing the thymus directly causes cancer or other fatal illnesses, but researchers are concerned by the findings, and until we know more, they argue that preserving the thymus should now be a clinical priority where possible.
Yes.
So we're not exactly sure what's going on, but we might be breaking something. Let's stop breaking that if we can avoid that.
Yeah. And how many times do they say this was never expected? The quote right out of the article, the magnitude of risk was something we would have never expected. Well, maybe you would have expected it if you realized God is this ingenious engineer. He didn't put a thymus in there as some, well, you know, they think it's left over from evolutionary naturalistic processes. But if you come at this from a design point of view, from Jesus Christ designed, and our bodies were perfect at the beginning, and we've decayed a little bit over time, even though we've got a wonderful quality control system that makes us not as, the fallen creation hasn't wiped us out.
No.
But because of this elaborate quality control. But Doug, you and I would have expected removing an organ would not be good.
Right.
We would not have to say, we would never expected removing it would cause problems. We would have expected
right. Absolutely. I would say, hey, if you don't have to remove that, let's not.
Exactly.
That would be the default position.
Yeah.
And it's interesting about the thymus. I didn't realize this, but so when you're very young, the thymus is obviously contributing to immune response. It produces all kinds of T cells. But as we get older, and by the time you're a teenager, young adult, the thymus shrivels up, and it would appear that it's not really doing much of anything at all anymore. And so an evolutionary viewpoint takes a look at that and says, well, we could just cut it off. It's obviously it's fulfilled its purpose. It's just an accident of evolution anyway.
And evolution is trying to remove it. Who knows?
Sure, maybe it's supposed to be falling off. And it sounds silly, but if you take evolution to its natural, that's what, like, my kids always ask, why are they so upset about the polar bears? If the polar bears can't make it, it's survival of the fittest, baby.
Yeah.
Come on, quit crying about the polar bears and the whales. If they can't hang.
The polar bears. Yeah,
and so
if
you take evolution to its natural progression of where it's going, you end up with, not to put too fine a point on it, but you end up with a teenager wearing a shirt that says natural selection, walking into his high school with an automatic weapon. That's what you end up with if you take it to
exactly.
Absolutely.
Those kind of beliefs have consequences.
Yes. So. Whereas if you believe that God created us and we all bear his image and we are all responsible to our creator, which means we're all responsible to each other, we learn a lesson to love one another because God loves us. And God loves you. And so if you don't know about Jesus Christ, give us a call, send us an email. We'd love to tell you more about the Creator.
Well, speaking of people emailing us, and we love it when you guys email us and call us, and we've been getting quite a few. So we got one from a regular listener, Joshua Purcell. Thank you for emailing this in. This is just last week. And so this is a recent article. So I wanted to bring this one up, Doug. And so if you look at it, it's the title of the article, and this is from Western News. And this is the title: Discovery Changes Understanding of Water's History on the Moon. And the subtitle is Western Cosmochemist. So that's a new
cosmochemist.
I'm going to go to college and be a cosmochemist.
Okay.
So this cosmochemist finds early lunar crust had more water than previously estimated.
Imagine
now,
that.
What would water be doing on the moon? Now, if the moon is millions of years old, it should be dry and inert, basically.
That's what I would have thought.
The moon was kind of young, like maybe 6,000 years old, somewhere in that vicinity, and you're finding water on it. Could Jesus Christ, maybe he created water on the moon to begin with?
That could be.
Could there be some other reason that water ends up on the moon? And these are rocks that she's looked at. So this isn't like, seismic tomography or any kind of.
No, this
isn't models.
This is pictures of the rocks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is something that's pretty concrete evidence. And so Joshua emailed this in and said, is this another, Walt Brown, working for Walt Brown scientist? is this lady. Her name is Tara Hayden. I want to know, Tara, did you know you work for Walt Brown?
Little did she know when she signed up for the whole cosmochemist thing.
Yeah,
She'd be cosmochemist thing for Walt Brown.
They should have in the school of Walt Brown, Dr. Walt Brown,
right.
School of Cosmic Chemistry. So if you look at the article, this is what she says. It has been long believed the lunar surface has been dried out for thousands or even millions of years, as we just mentioned. If
long believed.
Millions of years, it should be dried out.
Right.
But she goes on, but maybe there might be more water available than we thought on the surface of the moon, and we just need to find a way to extract it. So, Doug, this reminds me of astronaut Alan Shepard. Remember what he discovered on the moon?
Let's see. He found a rock, right? And did they bring it back to the Earth?
They brought it
back to the Earth. Yes, I don't remember all the details. Refresh my memory.
Yeah, several decades ago. Well, then it turns out that one of the rocks he brought back, they examined it more closely, and they found water in it.
That's right.
And guess what?
Yeah.
And not only that, they believe that rock came from Earth. So now you've got a rock from Earth,
right,
with water in it.
Yeah.
And so,
they found it on the moon.
They find it on the moon.
On the moon.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So here's what, this is from Science, the website Science. They produce a science journal, science.org. They do Science Magazine,
right,
which is one of the most prestigious secular science journals in the world.
Indeed.
This is what he said. This guy, scientist named Kring, he said, the results, Kring says, indicate that the rock formed in a water-rich environment at temperatures and pressures corresponding to 19 kilometers beneath the surface of the Earth.
Beneath the surface of the Earth? Interesting.
Does the Bible ever talk about anything about like the fountains of the great deep
and the pillars? Yes, there are some passages in there.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff, and so this is clearly working for Walt Brown. Now, for those who think that this is just a coincidental, this is one rock, you have to realize Alan Shepard didn't bring back that many rocks.
No.
He did not win the rock lottery and happen to pick one rock that looks like it may have come from 20 miles beneath the Earth's surface, or 19 kilometers.
Right.
That means there's a lot more rocks like that, Doug.
Yes.
And this lady, Hayden, she's elaborating on this.
She's confirming the fact that there's way more water on the moon than we might have thought. And I want to confirm that Hayden, what was her first name? Did we get her first name here? Tara Hayden. I just want to make it clear, Tara cannot identify any way she wants. She's a girl. In fact, they say she is working on her PhD in the article.
Okay.
So we joke around about identifying as whatever, but we're not serious about that. You're not allowed to do that. We don't roll that way. We don't play that.
Yeah.
No, you can't. It's Ms. Hayden at this point because we don't know that she's married, but we do know she's a girl.
Yeah, we do know that.
We do know that she works for Walt Brown because she's confirmed yet more water on the moon than we would have thought because it hasn't been dried out for millions of years because there just hasn't been millions of years. There just hasn't been. No.
And of course, in this article, Miss Hayden says that lunar meteorites are revealing new, exciting parts of the moon's evolution.
Of course.
So you've got to bow down to the evolution in order to even get published in some of these secular journals.
Yes. Of course.
Even though the evidence just continues to pile on enormously for creation. And what we would posit at Real Science Radio, it's obvious that we support the hydroplate theory.
We do.
As the best explanation for the global flood. There's other ideas out there that, we have problems with. We think the hydroplate theory just has so much evidence for it. And here's yet another example. And I'd like to thank Joshua for emailing that in last week.
Thanks, Josh. We appreciate it. Yep. And thanks, Tara. We'll have, Walt doesn't sign any checks or anything, but you'll get credit where credit is due when it really matters, Tara. So.
Yep. And this again was from Western News, and this is last week, January 15th, 2024.
Yes, a story from our fine neighbors to the north up there in Canada.
So, Doug, you've got a huge list of science articles that you've accumulated. Is there another one that you'd like to
Well, do we
about?
want to do, well, we've got a 1.75 billion year old discovery. And then we've
about
also
the origin of life. And so we're going to really talk a lot about that when we have Dr. Tour on.
Yes. So, but before we get to that, I want to do this. I want to do this quick on dairy fat because I know your opinion of milk and all that. So, and I just want. I recently switched to whole milk because I read this article. This is from LouRockwell.com. I don't know how great a source Lou Rockwell is.
Yeah. Is that a guy? Or?
It's a guy named Lou. And so can you trust a guy named Lou? Well, probably as much as fizz.org.
Isn't that a country song, a guy named Lou?
A boy named Sue.
Okay, there you go.
Yes.
But, it's the sequel, a boy named...
But Lou is quoting Dr. Joseph Mercola, who is... Dr. Mercola has some really great stuff. He has some other stuff that I find a bit questionable, but generally Dr. Mercola's health advice is pretty good.
Okay.
Eat well, exercise, don't eat a lot of processed garbage, cut down on the sugar and the carbs, and a lot of good common sense. And they talk about whole milk and raw milk is good because of its saturated fat content. I'll link to this article. You might be missing out if you're not drinking whole milk or raw milk. You might be missing out on one of the greatest health foods out there. And they cite a study where they've repeatedly failed to find an association between a full-fat dairy diet and cardiovascular events, number one.
Okay.
And they found the opposite. A full-fat dairy reduces your risk of cardiovascular events. And one of the reasons are the different types of fatty acids. It turns out all these fatty acids are important. And we need a large variety of different, they call them odd chain and even chain fatty acids. And I'm not going to pretend that I understand what they all are.
Yeah.
But if you look at life through the lens of creationism, the fact that God made us and he made everything perfect at the beginning and everything is broken, but everything works as a system that was designed, well, you see that there are all these different types of fatty acids that can be metabolized in a biological organism, like let's say a human being or a cat or a dog or whatever. Well, it would make sense that probably all of these fatty acids, they all have something to contribute to the bigger picture.
Okay.
And so it turns out maybe cutting out all the fat and cutting out all the whole milk and all the dairy, that might not be the greatest idea. Maybe moderation is a better but not for you, unless you're allergic and it makes you throw up. Then I can understand you don't want.
I'm not allergic, but Doug, I'm just not a very tolerant person when it comes to milk. I am what's called lactose intolerant. And my wife is very thankful that I don't take the advice of this article and start drinking whole milk, because then I think she would probably have a cardiovascular event. Because it's just to say life is more pleasant for my wife if I'm not drinking milk, because it does, upset the stomach. And so I spent years trying to figure out, like, I don't know, my mid 40s, maybe early 50s. I actually eventually went to a doctor because, like, what's my issue here? Because I'm just not having what I think are normal behavior. So guess what they diagnosed me? They said I had irritable bowel syndrome.
Okay.
Well, I looked it up, and like I encourage everybody, always do your own research.
Oh, absolutely.
Don't be a doctor, but be smart about and realize that doctors are fallible, and the whole industry, any industry and any type of discipline is fallible. So I did research. Sure. Well, guess what irritable bowel syndrome is? It's a made-up disease. It really is. It's when they don't know what's going on, they say, "Oh, you've got irritable bowel syndrome."
Yes.
So I decided, well, I'm going to give up milk, and I'd given up milk for a week, but that wasn't long enough. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to try giving up dairy for like 3 weeks or a month. And by about the 2-week point, my whole, I don't want to say it over the radio, but the irritable bowel syndrome,
the irritable bowel syndrome
went away,
vanished.
And my wife was the most thankful person in the world.
I'm sure.
And it really did. I mean, truly, the amount of problems I was having, and it wasn't terrible. It wasn't like but it was just enough to be irritable. It's a good name for that disease.
That's probably where they came up with it. It irritates.
It solved my problem. And
well, so you might want to try finding another source for odd chain fatty acids.
I will do some research I'll look for odd chain fatty acids.
Yes,
hopefully the almond milk has odd chain fatty acids.
So why do they call it milk? But I don't think you can call anything milk unless you get it through a milking process. I don't think it should be called milk. I think the almonds and what are the other ones? There's all kinds of them now. There's almond, there's
almond, silk, something.
Soy milk.
Oat milk. I think
oat milk. That's not milk. What it is, they're just taking stuff and they're mashing it up and they're mixing it with water.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, I'm a milk purist.
I would love to still be able to drink milk. I actually love milk. I miss having a good milkshake. I cannot have a shake. If I even have a quarter of a shake, because I gave up milk, and I know we're kind of going off topic, but I gave up milk, I become even more intolerant to milk, even as I go along, as I can't even have a little bit, and it's,
Well, so it's not that you have anything personal against milk. It's just a biological reality.
Yeah, it's just the way it is. And I still think that it's that you guys have the mutation that make you be able to still drink milk. I could be wrong. Definitely. I mean, this is an argument that I could be wrong. And the Bible could maybe be telling me I'm wrong because it says I'm taking you into a land of milk and honey. If that was a land of whole milk and honey, these guys aren't young people. They're older. It's the whole range of people going into the promised land. It wasn't just younger people who could still drink whole milk. No, this is everybody. So I could be wrong.
Well, we'll find out. We'll find out on Judgment Day on the other side. I don't think that'll be a part of Judgment Day. That'll be a later day.
It could be I say, God, am I wrong? God, I think that I don't have the mutation and I got the healthy gene that I'm lactose intolerant at my age. And God might go, I might get the
You're
buzzer
wrong,
hug.
Fred. All right, now we're almost out of time. We've got only 1.75 billion years left. So, no, scientists have now pushed back the, let's see, I've got where did I get this from? Now, I downloaded this. I'm not going to recommend this. I'm not even going to give the name of this site. I'm going to find a better place. I don't know how I end up with this. You know what it is I have a Yahoo email address that I used to use only for junk. Like if I was going to sign up to use a 2-week free download or whatever, I would always use this Yahoo.
I would call Yahoo email junk. I mean, I think, hopefully Yahoo doesn't come after me, but I'm telling you, you guys run ads on your stupid email program and your email's junk.
That's it. Yeah. So I had this email that I used to only use, but then now I use it for something that I actually have to check because something I did the 2-week trial on, I ended up buying it and using it for my business. Now I check this Yahoo email couple times a day.
Yep.
And so just like you said, there's ads, but there's also the news feed of the average moron is what I call it. This is what the average moron sees in their news feed. And there's inevitably stories about, I think maybe because maybe Yahoo can tell I'm interested in science a little bit. And so they're constantly feeding me articles like this one. Scientists just made a 1.75 billion year old discovery about the origin of life. And so the average moron reads this and they think that scientists have made a discovery about the origin of life, which is not the case at all.
No.
And this is when we have Dr. Tour on, people wonder why he yells. Did you hear what was just happening to me?
Yeah.
Well, when you read this, it's upsetting that headlines like this are designed to be misleading to people who aren't really fully paying attention. If you were educated in the government schools and then you went to college and you got your degree and you're now working in the corporate world, you're not necessarily focused on the origins of life. And as you go through your life, over time, you see hundreds and hundreds of headlines like this, and you have the mistaken assumption that scientists actually understand the origins of life through the lens of biology and evolutionary biology and old Earth cosmology, all the stuff you learned in grade school. These headlines reinforce that that's actually been borne out now by the scientific evidence, and it's completely misleading.
Oh, yeah, completely false. So, and what you're referring to, Doug, is it's not some chemical reaction or something they found that, oh, this kind of points to how the life could have began, the origin of life. This was something they found inside fossilized bacteria from Australia and Canada.
Right.
So they claim the fossils are 1.75 billion years old.
Yes.
And so it pushes back the undisputed origin of photosynthesis as we know it by at least 1.2 billion years.
Okay, now wait a second. Wait a second. So they say this is 1.75 billion years old. They say that the origin of photosynthesis up until now was undisputed.
Yeah.
But we just suddenly pushed it back by 1.2 billion years.
It's a lot.
How many orders of magnitude is that?
It's remarkable.
How was that undisputed? And
yeah, and how does this really help your case? Is this another example of something that doesn't fit at all? And of course the age of 1.75 billion, they probably got that age from the rocks.
So they know that the bacteria is that old because the rocks they found the bacteria in were that old. How do they know the rocks are that old? Because these bacteria they found
like fossils,
and so
fossils date the rocks, rock dates the fossils.
You think I'm joking? It's actually not joking. That type of circular logic is used in the dating schema.
Yep.
So basically, scientists. This was published in Nature. I'll try to find the link on Nature, and then I can link to it without linking to this other website that Yahoo hooked me up with. So this was published in Nature, and they say this is the oldest evidence they have of thylakoid membranes. And these are membranes that can convert, let me see, I don't want to mess this up because it's rather sophisticated what these membranes do. They say the find is significant, according to one of the researchers, because it helps scientists understand how complex life evolved on Earth by helping them understand how photosynthesis came about. Okay? For how photosynthesis came about. Understanding this can help us look for evidence of this life-giving, world-changing process on other planets. Okay. So they haven't figured out how it happened on this planet, and they're surrounded by it. You look at this stuff all day long. And so anyway, it's just when something moves your undisputed target date or your undisputed date of origin back by 10 or more orders of magnitude, I think you have to admit that maybe you don't know what's going on.
Yeah, and we hope that when we present this information, at the very least, we want you to think critically. Just don't take this stuff for granted. We know that we have some atheists listen to us and some people are on the fence. And we're trying to give you another perspective and not to be what I would say is brainwashed by all this stuff that comes at you as undisputed. Well, guess what? The undisputed is now disputed.
Yes.
And just don't trust these things you hear. They always find, Doug, the missing link. And when they find that missing link, they admit that they couldn't find the missing link.
That's right.
But yet they'll say they found the missing link, and then 10 years after that, they'll say, hey, we've never found the missing link, but now we found the missing link. Well, guess what?
We're not supposed to notice that you can't find the missing link more than once. You're not allowed.
Yep.
Right? Are we not supposed to notice that? Oh, I missed this part. I wanted to get to this. The one thing that's not disputed is that these structures in these fossilized bacteria are capable of turning sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide into energy and oxygen. That's undisputed. What these membranes do is fantastically sophisticated.
Yeah, and incredibly complex.
Yes.
It's a marvel of engineering design.
Yeah.
And they act like it's some simple structure. It's not. So, Doug, we're actually out of time. I did want to mention, just on January 15th last week, scientists discover key stepping stone to the origin of life. So when we have Dr. Tour on, we might want to mention that. This was reported in Newsweek.
Oh boy.
And it talks about fatty acids and how they, how they were they could be formed in these hydrothermal vents.
Oh, yes.
And remember, we had Dr. Truman on, and he talked about how heat actually destroys amino acids, and they'll run their experiment up until it starts to destroy them, and then they'll end the experiment.
And they'll say, we got it.
Yeah.
But they won't say, oh, but then it was obliterated. Oh, yes.
So at the end of this show, I'll provide a link to Dr. Truman's 2 shows, a 2-part series on abiogenesis and the origin of life, and how he's such a fantastic guest we've had on the show. Looking forward to having James tour.
It'll be fabulous.
Just keep knocking this ball out of the park on the origin of life claims.
That's right.
So, well, Doug, thanks for these articles. I think we've only gotten through 2 pages out of, you have like 19 here. So
we've got lots of material.
Stuff.
Always, never ending.
It's
Thanks,
never
Fred.
ending. Yep. Thank you, Doug. So for Doug McBurney, I'm Fred Williams of Real Science Radio. May God bless you.